Amazing. Well, as you might have guessed, I am not James. I don't know if any of you have realized that. I am on this panel, but now we're switching it up a little bit, and I'm going to be serving as moderator instead of James. You're welcome. So I did. I do love moderating. So oh, well, I have an incredible group of panelists here on stage with me today. We're going to be talking about a brand new subject that I'm sure none of you have heard of called artificial intelligence. So, well, and also make sure your mics are turned on. Now, maybe it's a little housekeeping. I push that little button up. So it's very important for the ability to record these conversations for later posterity and to make sure, for legal reasons. So, well, I'm going to start. I would have everyone just do a brief introduction of who you are, what your title is, and what you do specifically in AI. Reut, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Reut Lazo. I'm the founder of Women in AI. I'm on the board of director of an organization, nonprofit AI 2030. And I'm also a product manager lead at healthcare companies helping implement an AI solutions.
And I'm Jim, excuse me, I'm Jim St. Clair. I'm here on behalf of Health Universe. Health Universe is a startup that offers a AI hackathon, codathon platform as a service. We aim to partner with nonprofits, cause-based organizations like American Cancer Society or Dana-Farber to be able to leverage their population or constituents in partnership with AI developers, especially groups from universities, to develop AI applications in a hackathon type environment. So it's a hackathon opportunity, a codathon opportunity, where the output is an application that could be used by those populations to collect symptoms, monitor medications, et cetera. I'm also part of the Coalition for Healthcare AI organization, the Health AI Partnership, and co-chair the Health and Life Sciences Working Group for the Digital Twin Consortium.
Great.
My name is Bara Badwan, and I work for Intelligencia.ai. The company focuses on using machine learning and AI to predict which therapeutics are more likely to get FDA approval. And there, my role is twofold. One is developing more of the bioinformatics models that can really make these predictions as accurately and as early as possible, and also trying to use these predictions to inform investment decisions and investment portfolios. I have to go into that some more.
And our newest panelist that I talked to her yesterday, and I was like, you have to be on this panel, please.
I haven't seen any of the questions, right? So, Veronique Bouchet. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of PrecisionLife, and we're an AI-enabled precision medicine company, but in complex chronic diseases. Our special sauce is the ability to stratify patients with a mathematical platform, which is not machine learning, quite different. And we do combinatorial analytics, basically, and we can combine all sorts of data. Our sweet sauce is taking genotypic, clinical, and phenotypic data, and we're able to look at the mechanistic drivers underlying diseases. And we develop novel targets with patient stratification biomarkers, and we also are developing mechanostics, which are saliva or blood-based tests that allow to detect the risk of a disease in a patient and the underlying mechanisms, giving an indication of what drugs might be helpful.
And if you haven't seen her business cards, they're fabulous because she really helps you visualize how they're using, this technology to help you stratify your patients. So I have one in my pocket, and it's specifically for Alzheimer's, and I can see the patient population I'm specifically wanting to target. So it's a great visualization.
We thought Alzheimer's was one disease, but actually we've identified 6 major underlying drivers.
It's nice to have a visual aid of like how AI and machine learning can help you stratify patients in a great, I need pictures, like that just helps me. So, well, let's dig into some questions. Bara, your work focuses on using AI for drug development, and Reut, you advocate for empowering women in AI. What role do you see AI playing in making drug discovery process more efficient? But also that big piece is diversity, because that it's a huge problem that we have in the drug discovery and development industry, as we talked a little bit about yesterday, and a little bit on our podcast that I hope all of you listen to. How do you help bridge that gap? I'll start with you, Reut, and then Bara.
Should I answer the drug discovery?
You can do it, whatever you feel comfortable
Okay.
with.
So I think AI does help drug discovery as well. I think it just speed up the process and can reduce cost. And you know, AI and this fundamental core is helping to go through vast amount of data. It can predict how molecules interact, and it also can help optimize clinical trials. So with that, it can help us bring life-saving medication to market even faster. So in the past, we used to have like, it took us like a decade to get to find a new drug to, and cost like billions of dollars. And only because of the need to scan like so many compounds and extensive testing. But now with AI, it can actually, you know, scan through this data so fast and kind of like reducing the cost of it, that it can actually find better compound even faster. And regarding the question for, you know, how can we help diversity about women in AI is, first of all, we have to be proactive about it. We have to make a conscious decision to include women in our hiring process, in our team, to make it fundamental in our organization to have diversity in the team, but also in the board seats, in the C-level suite. So having a diverse team, meaning we have diverse decision-making as well, optimizing actually the decision and potentially better outcome for patients as well.
Great. And Bara.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think on the first question, it's really a question of knowing how to direct your resources well. So if AI can give you a further insights into, you know, these assets have high potential, these assets don't, you're able to direct your resources, the time and the capital, and that will result in therapeutics reaching the market faster. And that's very, very important. And yeah, and in terms of, you know, removing some of the biases, I mean, it could be in both ways, right? Sometimes you can say like AI can really take away the human biases by, you know, we're leaving it, looking at it, the fundamentals or the data and spitting out the answers unhindered by human biases. But really those biases get baked in when you develop the model and when you set things up. So there definitely needs to be a proactive measures taken when you're designing your model, when you're designing your data to, you know, ensure that the inputs you're putting in are as representatives of the diversity of the world as possible. That way the outputs will be as well.
And Veronique, I'm sure you have experience in that as you think about your data sets of how do you look at bias as it relates to data?
We look at kind of bias in a different way because we don't do machine learning.
Yeah.
And we've got a mathematical model that operates hypothesis free.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a very different branch of maths, which is called array maths. And it's able to deal with 10 to the 50 combinations of whatever. There might be SNPs or there might be different type of data. The key thing in terms of the R&D first, I think you said, was what we are able to do really is identify the mechanisms to target for the disease. So using the example of Alzheimer's, it's not one drug, it's 6. And the lipoprotein metabolism is only present in 32% of that population. So most of the drugs that are being targeted at that mechanism are not going to work in a whole population. So to me, our sort of AI is going to really completely revolutionize precision medicine in these complex chronic diseases where GWAS, sorry, but machine learning just can't do that. They cannot do the combinatorial bit, which is the non-linearity of complex biology. That's number one. In terms of bias, so our algorithm is not biased. We just let it do what it does. Where we have a problem is with the lack of genetic ancestry diversity in our data sets. So if you look at UK Biobank, it's Caucasians, they're over 60 years old. We have just accessed all of us because that's a much more diverse population. And it's going to be really, really important because there are regulations coming along to say if you've got a tool which assesses a risk of a disease, you've got to make sure that that covers the diversity of the population. And it's quite difficult because you might develop something that identifies a risk of a disease in one population, which is Caucasian. It might not be the same in another one. So I'm constantly hunting for diversity, basically. And we're finding that most of the data sets are not necessarily diverse enough. So it's something for all the scientists out there that are collecting data, is just to make sure you include as many different ancestry sources.
Well, you guys are all experts in AI, but a lot of the folks in our audience aren't necessarily, and myself included. I mean, I know that I am the director of the Alliance of AI in Healthcare, but I'm a scientist by training and more on the biology side. But one of the reasons why I joined the AI age is because honestly, I know that's where our industry is headed, and I wanted to make sure that I understood it and could be a part of it. But it can be really overwhelming if you're not in the field and not in the industry. And where do you suggest, as either a scientist or a startup company that's doing very traditional drug discovery or diagnostics and devices, where do you, what's one piece of advice that you could suggest that how does one start if they aren't experts in AI like yourselves? And I'm just going to have you go down the line. So Reut, I'll start with you.
I feel like I'm on the hot seat.
I know,
because I sat so close.
that's the problem with sitting next to me. Yeah.
Of course. I think if you haven't started with AI, start small, right? Like get familiar with the tools out there. Find out what's the repetitive task that you have, that you do, that the AI can help you with. And I call it job mapping. Just try to think about the different tasks that you do, what takes you the longer, and you keep repeating it at the same time, because AI is all about the data sets, and it knows how to shorten the process of the work, to basically take something that took a few hours and identify patterns. So it can do that for you. So understanding how it works and how it can automate and power up your work is something that is a must.
So start small. I like that.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah, and
This is right up your alley. I mean, your whole thing is to make it easier for us. So.
I think absolutely that there are only a handful of real experts, and I would never consider myself an expert. And I think to the question, what I find is almost being overwhelmed with just the changes on a daily basis. So, what sounds like the latest state of the art in AI today is very different than even say 6 months ago. So if you're looking at it and say, I don't know anything about it, there's a bunch of free resources out there, Coursera, edX, and others. Just take a simple couple-hour introduction to AI course or something on LinkedIn. It'll at least give you better understanding of the parlance. So the difference between a small language model, large language model, how retrieval augmented generation works, a few of these other things. And they sound complex, but really you get enough to say, oh, okay, I get it. And I think that's important because it at least allows you to apply critical thinking when you read something else and know, hey, is this really real, or what's really the problems with it? But it doesn't require you to become a Python machine learning expert.
Yeah, agreed. I think a big part of it is the jargon. You have to get past the first layer of jargon, like machine learning versus AI versus graphical neural networks. But those early courses can really set a good foundation there. And maybe the recommendation I would give would be to find the link to what you already know. So, for example, a lot of people, I mean, my background is in chemistry and biology a little bit, but knowing how does a chemical structure get represented to a computer? What kind of things can we do to that chemical structure? How can we represent it in a way that the machine can understand it? Those things suddenly, when you find something that you're already familiar with and you can find that link, it becomes much easier to see where you can find the most impact for AI. And I think it's very, very rare for people who are working in AI to have that deep biological or chemical knowledge. So being on one side of it really helps when you widen out your knowledge on that.
Um, I'm not an AI geek, so I'm not sure I can advise any of you where to go and read up about AI. My CEO is doing a great video, a Blue Box interview explaining AI in healthcare. For me, I would pick what area are you interested in? I'm more on the how can I apply our technology, our platform to getting great results. And I think that it probably will be easier for anybody to understand whatever model of AI if you link it to an area that you're interested in or you're working in. Because it can get very, very complex. But at the end of the day, what does it do for you? How is it going to improve what you're working on is the way I would look at it, rather than trying to milk the world of all the various different AI methodologies.
And Veronique, I think that's an excellent point. We talk about AI in healthcare. Well, that's great. Well, let's strip it away for a minute. If I just say healthcare to any average person, and for the context of this room, we know that varies from seeing your primary care doc in an encounter versus biomedical research versus drug discovery versus oncology. And we all lump it under this thing called healthcare because it's not chemical engineering and it's not housekeeping. AI applies the same way. Are we talking about AI for new drug discovery? Are we talking AI for clinician assistance and voice recognition and scribing? Are we talking AI for in silico discovery of a new treatment pathway or something like that that would normally need laboratory testing? It all kind of gets lumped together, right? And so that does add to the confusion to help sort out.
One of the other challenges as we talk about AI is this: how do you balance innovation and safety? That can be a big concern. And we saw, I think several weeks back, that China started a complete AI hospital. That sounds incredible, but at the same time, that also sounds a little bit scary as well. And so, and Jim, you and I were talking about this, about just of how do you balance that piece of it? And I'm going to stick with you on that question because I think that we had some pretty good.
Because I'm going to get
answers
fired up.
solved it. So.
I'm going to get fired up. Yeah, so I think this is a wonderful, some of the things we talked about. First of all, drawing on my MD colleague, so this doesn't come from me just as a technocrat, but from folks who have actually practiced medicine with patients. They use the words compared to what? So we want to call out various aspects of concern about AI safety in a clinical environment and clinical operations because it may not be as safe about this or it hallucinates about that. And the answer my colleagues give back is compared to what? Compared to a resident who's been on duty for the last 24 hours, who's seeing you at 2 o'clock in the morning when you come in, compared to somebody that's at an overworked caseload or has had their own personal conflicts. Physicians are themselves human and make human errors. And we strive now through various ways, both effective and not effective, to get metrics as to how those humans perform. And then we turn around and place a whole nother judgment stack on top of AI. And I think to the AI hospital point, as we talked about being residents here in the Gulf South and in rural areas, I have the majority of counties in Mississippi that have no OB/GYN support whatsoever. Now, the answer could be a perhaps unsafe AI, or it could be no care at all. So as we look forward to, I offer 5-10 years where the median age of the American Association of Family Practitioners is 55, and everyone gets to 65, and we have sudden changes in demographics, sudden changes in the availability of technical expertise with retiring and separation. What is going to fill that gap? Well, we have about 10 years to thoughtfully and deliberately approach the concepts of AI and automation and semi-autonomous clinical functions and start incorporating them now and not just wait 10 years, look at our watch and say, well, we better solve something by tomorrow because areas are in crisis.
That's great. I love the compared to what piece of it. It's a good reminder. And another reminder, I mean, this goes back to something that Tad said earlier in the investor panel where we talk about there's so many people that are just slapping AI, machine learning onto their pitch deck and hoping for a big old check. So one phrase I have heard is, describe your technology without using those words, AI, machine learning, and that's how you distinguish yourself. But Bara, I'd love to understand as you're, what you've seen of how can companies that that are leveraging, some type of machine learning distinguish themselves from those that are just kind of just saying it a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And really on the first point you mentioned about safety, I think especially with the question of drug discovery, I think generally with AI, there's this question of the feedback loop. Like from when the AI presents you a solution or generates something, how long is that feedback loop before you know whether that's a good suggestion or not? So, and we're seeing this, I mean, probably when how you use ChatGPT, for example, you ask a question, sometimes you know that this is a correct answer, or it put things together correctly, and you're happy with that. Sometimes it's not clear. Maybe it hallucinates and you don't know that it hallucinates. That's a big problem. That's why I find like the best use case for LLMs has been to do coding. Because with coding, when you ask the LLM to generate code for you, you can put that code into your code editor, and then it will run. It will either run or it will crash. And then you have that feedback real fast. With drug discovery, that feedback loop is very, very long because the same standards of safety and efficacy are still there. You still, I can put together for you a model that will spit out a list of 10 possible drugs for Alzheimer's, but then, you have to go into actually to the FDA process, to phase 1, phase 2, and then maybe like 5, 6, 7 years down the line, you'll figure out if your model was good or not. And that's good for safety, but maybe not so much for, that fast iterative process to find, the best model. But that's why it's very important to kind of have, embedded along the way things that you can generate while you wait for that big feedback loop, or try to find points of validation as you go along. I don't know. I'm sure they're deeper experts.
Well, there's many aspects of safety. I mean, I gave medicine because I crashed the car after 72 hours on call without sleep in the days when we did 80 to 120. Would I trust an AI robot or whatever? I don't know. I mean, I'm probably a little bit biased because I think there's something called intuition that comes into medicine. It's I know that
You are an MD, so you are coming from that.
I worked with old school physicians who seemed to sense what was wrong with the patients. Nowadays, though, medicine, I'm having to relearn in my job because we work across 50 diseases, and it's all now biology. It's genomics. It's completely different to when I trained, and I can imagine, I have great difficulty keeping up to date with I can't be an expert in 50 diseases. Having tools like AI that can point you in the right direction and maybe give you your differential diagnosis. Now that I think is brilliant. Summarizing, if it does it properly, because it could be garbage in, garbage out, that's the problem. Summarizing this huge amount of information that you have to keep up to speed with, that also can be very, very useful. But as a patient, I think I'd probably would like somebody to check. And I mean, your AI can't do a cesarean section in, when you've got 2 minutes to get somebody. I used to do OBGYN as well. When you've got, somebody who's stuck in labor. So I think it's got to be a mix. And I would have been very, very happy to have some of the tools that are out there now when I was a newly minted medic, because medicine's operator dependent. There's some really good doctors and there's some pretty bad ones. So I think, it's a balance. Yeah.
Run out of batteries here.
Yeah.
I'll interview.
It's okay. I think Veronique is really spot on. And I think it's really important to think about also the human in the loop here. We're not just giving AI all the control to diagnose, analyze, give that feedback to the patient and the patient leaves, right? We do have the doctors there to review it. Same as with code, right? It can write code for you, but you have to check it, right? Even in ChatGPT, I don't know how many are experiencing different tools out there. Sometimes the answers are off, right? I know, Jim, you told me about one example you had yesterday that you want something out of the tool and it spits out something completely different and you have to tweak it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the human in the loop here. And I think we're still far away from like handing over everything to AI. There's still the human factor here that comes into play when we're talking about safety.
Yeah, Claude Sonnet refused to acknowledge Halloween.
I've had to occasionally tell ChatGPT, stop, reset. This isn't right.
But can I just say that there are some radiology is one area where AI is really
Brilliant.
helping. Pathologists are not as good as pigeons at spotting abnormalities in slides, and in certain things where there are patterns, and you've got a tired doctor who's just been looking at thousands of images, that's a really useful tool. The other thing, we're doing quite a bit of work in endometriosis, and the gold standard for diagnosis is you go in and you do the laparoscopy, and then you look at lesions and you remove the lesions, and then 5 years later you say you go in again because the lesions have
Come back.
recurred. But in 20% of cases, you can't see anything. So now they're developing techniques that allow you to spot the lesions which are not visible to the human eye. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but in specific areas, it's already proving massively helpful. It's just to go from here to the whole gamut of not having a human in the loop, which is scary.
Perfect segue to my next question before I turn it over to the audience, and that is hallucinations. I mean, we talked about how AI can hallucinate occasionally, but what are some of the human hallucinations as we talk about some of the more, I guess, esoteric things that we think about in AI? We talked a little bit about digital twins. We've talked a little bit about not having to use animals in our research because we're able to use AI to help us predict, safety and efficacy. How far away are we from these types of things? Bara, I'll ask you that question. So
how far away from using like digital twins or
like, what
hallucinations?
are some hallucinations where we're just,
Yeah.
that's probably 20 years off from now.
Like, if I do find it fascinating, the question of hallucinations with, especially like the AI that we use when we chat with ChatGPT and what else, that there's like a new way of dealing with these programs that we haven't really fully mastered yet.
Yeah.
And I think the hallucination question could be cut down by the proper use of these tools. Like with ChatGPT, for example, if you just ask it the question, it might hallucinate an answer. If you specifically tell it, only use these resources and cite where in the resource you used, then it would be able to say like, oh, well, I don't know. Based on this, I don't know. Or like it gives you more accurate results. And especially if you use it in a programmatic way, where I'm using it within my code, where I'm pinging it again and again with specific things, it becomes that prompt engineering question is really key. And I think figuring out how best to construct a question to get the answer you're looking for is key. And I think that as we learn how to use these machines more and more, we'll cut down on that some more. I don't know if that's in my work directly. Some of that shows up in, when we're representing chemical structures as strings or protein amino acid sequences as strings, we can teach the AI models to deal with those like the LLM does, and now generates new drugs based like like a new chemical compound as a string, and now we have that as a possibility. But then it generates compounds that can never exist or can never be synthesized. So there's always
chemists like that though. So.
yeah, I mean, it keeps them in business. So yeah, I mean, but the same kind of approach can also exist there. So like the first form of that was called SMILE structures, and then it became like something called the selfie structure. I know chemists love to give funny names for things, but that's kind of enforcing that only if you use structures that can exist or that can be synthesized. So it does kind of become the question of being proactively aware of these problems and engineering in certain safeguards there.
My prompts always include, don't make anything up. All right, I'm going to open it up to the audience. So what kinds of questions do we have? All the way in the back over there, Patrick. Oh, you need a mic. That would be. Sorry. Uh-oh, we're running out of mics here.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Amazing. I have a question. What's your view on the use of AI for mental health care?
So I don't have great behavioral health statistics. I can offer that. Perfect. I can offer from some of the things I read, like with the Department of Veterans Affairs, that they have used some preliminary AI tests and studies to find that AI's ability to detect things in the veteran's voice, in the way of stress patterns and things like that, have been very indicative. I also understand, and again, behavioral health is not my strong point. My behavioral health is not very strong. But the ability to recognize patterns of behavior that are indicative of behavioral health issues, and then use those for forecasting in other cases. So if you come in and you complain of X, Y, and Z, those may be indicative of things that they gather more information for that AI can help predict.
Yeah, I think one of the earliest programs, like in the 50s or 60s, I think it was called Eliza, I'm not sure, but it was like a very simple chat bot with pre-programmed answers, and it was pretending to be a psychiatrist. And even then, people were using it massively, right? Because there's some level of that where people do enjoy kind of that simple case. People find that useful, and people tend to be more honest with machines than they are with humans. So there could be some use cases that way. Have you read some things about the bedside manner for the ChatGPT being a little bit better? Because yeah, which is wild. So that gets you to think that there could be a direct use there, but yeah, obviously for the things that are more subtle or intricate, you obviously always need a human in the loop.
I did think of something else. That was a great prompt. The nature of care delivery, again, as I understand it, in behavioral health. Part of the challenge is if you're having a behavioral health crisis or there's challenges right now, you need to talk to somebody right now. And from a human resource perspective, that may not be available. If there have been identified clinical means of triage that are you okay? Do you want to tell me your problem? And those could be built into a chatbot AI agent structure. There's a lot of potential for that to help mitigate and ameliorate some of the implications of a crisis right then and there until you can get to a human professional. I've seen that too.
Hi. Nice, very nice discussion. I think I'm not an expert in AI, but when I hear AI, I'm like, it's cool, Yeah. So the thing is, I'm going into the drug discovery right now in the lab, and this is Dr. Sabya Chatterjee. He is a young faculty joined in our department, and he said, Dr. Desai, can we use AI for that? And I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. But that would be cool again. And then when he actually went into the pharma company to ask whether they can help us and whether we can get the access to their software for the drug discovery for the from our library compounds, and I really was real hot. I said, no, it was so expensive that I said, no, we cannot use that. I would rather go and wait and do my normal discovery. But I just wanted to know, how do I get access to these compounds? I don't mind paying some little charges, but not like a huge expensive software. So how do I get access to that if I want to do it?
I got some. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to charge you for, but like I would, if I was in your situation, because the thing that you have access to that a lot of people don't is a lab that can produce data. So if you leverage your lab to actually produce the data, the actual tools, like the AI that you use, it's a lot of it's public source. You can always kind of build that code to analyze your data and use AI to generate new suggestions based on your data. But the fact that you have a lab, you have multiple ways of getting clean data that only you have access to, that's really the thing that makes you most powerful. The actual tools, techniques, I would recommend, maybe get a grad student from the computer science department, and that will be a better use of money than paying some company.
It goes to the fact that there's a lot of companies that say that they're doing AI and they can be kind of charlatans in what they're offering. It's like, you can do that for free. And it's hard to distinguish between those companies that are offering a genuine service that can have a reasonable output versus the ones that are just kind of like, scraping things together. It's like, oh, I'll help you file your LLC and I'll charge you $1,000 to file your LLC. Girl, you can do that on the internet. Go to the website and it costs $50. But there's people that take advantage of that sort of access and knowledge. So buyer beware. So other questions? One more. Sorry, David, I can't.
Okay.
So I work in
Oh.
healthcare marketing, and
Hi.
sometimes it's very apparent that I have a PhD and not an MD. So my question is more communication and patient related. I think that a huge barrier to care at times is the communication or lack thereof we have with our physicians. And I see AI as a powerful tool to potentially summarize what at times can feel like anxiety that's actually symptoms. So do y'all see a future in where we have custom GBTs for each patient where doctors and patients can enter information? It's, hey, I had a headache. Oh, it's because you're hungover, and or it's a brain tumor. This kind of dual way of communication where we can communicate with our physicians without actually communicating to have more full holistic care.
Yes. Next question. Okay. Yeah. I'd offer 30 seconds on this just because this fits into where we're going, digital twins. So the work that's done, tremendous amount of work done on a global basis in research institutions around digital twins, but they're running in high performance computing centers, which to date has been the only place that sort of math could really get done. But as you looked at just an example, now with Apple having Apple Intelligence, which is essentially a small language model that's available to you, the growth and the ability of using 5G for exchanging information, blah, blah, blah. But as you collect your own personal health information, you can have models in the background to help run and sort those things out for you. So we're trying to look at how do we translate some things that are done specifically in high performance computing down now to what your phone and your laptop is able to do for you. And some of that stuff will fall out.
Well, that's all the time that we have before Patrick pulls me off with a hook that I think that he keeps in the back. So I want to take the moment to thank our panelists. And as you're thinking about how to implement AI strategies, think about these guys and reaching out to them to get their thoughts. And you can find them on LinkedIn. You can find them out on the networking break as well. Why don't we take a moment to thank our panelists?